doesn't mean anything if you get to a high valuation. But if you get to $10 million ARR per employee, that means that you built business that is resilient for the future.
So if I'm a founder today, what's the wrong instinct I need to fight against?
Most of your instincts, I would say. You could scale a company with intelligence, not really with capital or headcount.
What is one metric you feel like all founders should not even concentrate on?
What we should strive for is qualified pipeline. And I believe that the best founders, they don't need to hire people to tell them how to run their business.
Welcome, everybody. Today, we have got Amos Joseph, CEO and co-founder of Swan. Amos has built and sold 2 companies before. And now with Swan, he's proving something pretty wild, that 3 founders can serve 200 plus customers and chase the goal of $10 million ARR per employee. And what I love about Amos is he's not talking about replacing salespeople with bots or just stitching together AI gimmicks. His vision is about building autonomous businesses, companies that don't throw more bodies at problems, but instead reimagine the operating system of the business itself, where humans and AI work together. This conversation is not about Swan, it's about creating a playbook any founder operator can follow. We'll talk about why headcount can kill you, why static sequences are dead, and why chasing pipeline is probably a waste of time. We'll also pull out some of the Amos controversial takes, like his claim that becoming AI native has nothing to do with AI. Amos, thank you for being here. Let's jump in.
Wow, Rahul, thank you so much for that intro. Could I just take you with me to wherever I go, and you could introduce me to my friends?
I can do your voicemail.
It sounds perfect. Let's do it.
All right, awesome. Cool, Amos. So you've said earlier the old playbook was throw more bodies at the problem. I have worked for 10 years in startups. I think that's something which I heard all the time. So if I'm a founder today, what's the wrong instinct I need to fight against?
Yeah. Most of your instincts, I would say. That's first of all. So, the old unicorn growth at all costs playbook hasn't been innovated on like 15 years. So we're all used to building MVPs and trying to find product market fit. All these terms are actually, they were coined in 2009 in Eric Rye's, the Lean Startup book, basically. And what happened since is that nothing has changed in the playbook of how you build a company. It just got more and more expensive, and founders got more and more lazy, basically. They just used to going and raising money from VCs and then just pouring money and translating it to buying stuff or hiring people to solve, the challenges that we have. And finally, the time has come to reimagine the playbook of how you scale a company from the ground up in a very fundamental way, because to me today with AI and with AI agents, you could scale a company with intelligence, not really with capital or headcount. And so the most scarce and important resource is human AI collaboration, basically, and not how you get capital and deploy that capital and then grow your team. And so the first instinct I would say that founders should fight against is, okay, you have a scaling challenge. You want to scale pipeline. You want to deliver better support. You don't hire a person to do it for the first time. First of all, try to do it with your existing team and try to scale your output with intelligence. And instead of trying to hire people or automating these processes away, what you should nail first as an early stage startup is how should we do it where there's a human in the center of the process? Then how should we do it? After we figure that out, how should we do it with AI together? Then after we nail that, how can we scale that 100x times with AI taking more and more responsibility? And finally, after we nail that 100x version, let's get another person and turn them into a 100x version. And if you try to scale like that, instead of just throwing bodies at every problem, then what you can discover is an exponential growth curve that is also extremely efficient to lead.
Wow. I think you just basically told me that whatever I know so far is probably wrong. So thank you for doing that. That's exactly what I was open for today. Tell me about a time when you probably forced yourself not to hire and instead solved it with an AI or maybe design.
Yeah. So the basic example is support, actually. So, we're at Swan, we're just 3 founders at the moment, and we have already over 200 customers. And we're not just 3 of us, we have a lot of AI agents helping us. But when we started supporting these businesses, it started to compound. And it's not like we're building a prosumer product. These are real businesses that require real support. And we started drowning in support tickets. And what a usual startup team would do is they would hire support manager to hire support reps and build a support organization. But we decided to do things differently. And the first thing we did is we built into Swan a support mechanism, basically. So Swan already lives in Slack, and that's how you chat with it. And we're going to talk about what Swan does in this conversation, I'm sure, but it's already an agent that you can talk to. So we just added into it a knowledge base with some basic Q&As in it, so that if someone has a question, you could just ask Swan in the chat. And Swan delivered the responses to these questions. And that was nice, helped alleviate maybe 30% of the pressure, but we were still drowning in a lot of support tickets. That wasn't enough. And then we realized that all these questions that Swan doesn't know how to answer, then it can just escalate it to us through the same chat interface. Tell us, look, Rahul wants to know about your HubSpot integration and how does it work? And I don't have any Q&A regarding that in my knowledge base. So what should I tell them? And so that was very easy for us to just have everything consolidated. With Swan, we just told Swan, yeah, this is the response. HubSpot integration works like so and so. And Swan delivered that response to Rahul with the same chat interface in Slack. And that was better. We took it to 50%. But still, we're 3 people, 200 customers. The support pressure is still hot. And then the most interesting insight came that we're already telling Swan what is the right answer to this question that doesn't appear in our knowledge base. What if we had a tool that we could just tell Swan, yeah, you know what, but also document my response in the knowledge base. So I told you how HubSpot integration works in that specific use case. Just document this Q&A in our knowledge base. And the moment we did that, what happened is that we created a self-learning support system, but not a BS self-learning support system. It really does learn in a very simple way. The user asks a question. If it exists in the knowledge base, Swan answers it. If it doesn't exist, it escalates into the founder, and then we will reply, and that response gets documented in the knowledge base. And so that got the autonomous support resolution rate to almost 90%. And then we got these 10% cases where we want to be in the loop. These are like edge cases. These are like new cases that enables us to add more and more data to the knowledge base into our support system. And today we have an amazing support process, actually. And we feel like we're not just relinquishing the human touch here. It's more about delivering the best support to our users.
That was my next question. Like, how are you gonna ensure that there remains a human touch at all times?
Yeah. So another fundamental point of view that we have in Swans when we are kind of like trying to redesign this new playbook of how do you scale a company with AI is that we're not talking about AI native companies actually, or AI centric. These are like human centric companies. Autonomous businesses are not about automating ourselves away with AI. They're not about building AI walls. They're about building AI bridges, basically. And so we try to ask ourselves, where can we bring the most value to the user, and where is the AI? And it's not about automating the processes. It's about asking ourselves in the human AI collaboration mode, which part of the process should the AI take and which part of the process should we take? And for example, in support, whenever it's a commercial discussion, whenever it's a question about pricing or about upgrade or downgrade or churn or things like that, we want to be in the loop. These are conversations that we feel like we have much more to contribute than the AI, basically. And it's not about, can the AI take these conversations? It's actually about, these are the moments that we want to be involved in. And so these are the moments that where Swan escalates it to us always, and we want to be in the loop.
Amazing. I mean, I can totally see how far we've come, because in my first job, when I started in sales, I used to work with a company where we had a support system. We used to build help desk. And from there, I remember, still there was a human behind that help desk who has to manually look at each ticket, categorize them, and, accordingly assign to the right person. Then there will be another team who will close it, action it, so on. It was just a huge task. And I can see 10 years down the line, as to what you're explaining to me, that feels like a dream, because I can only imagine right now you have 200, tomorrow you'll have 2,000, and you can just only scale with humans so much. Tell me something, earlier we talked about this. What about the founders who actually add headcount too early? Are they admitting that they don't know how to design their business, or where do you think they're lacking?
So I think that founders rush to hire people to solve scaling challenges that they need to solve, basically. So at the beginning of the company, everything is like product market fit, in the sense that you try to scale pipeline. So you're trying to understand pipeline generation market fit. Right? You're trying to understand, how do you generate pipeline in this company? You cannot outsource it to agencies, and you cannot outsource it to new hires. You need to figure out how to do it. And if you don't know how to do it, then okay, maybe you need to hire someone to work with together to solve that challenge. But you don't hire someone to do it for you. And so I believe that the wrong thing to do is to see, okay, we're trying to generate pipeline, let's hire an SDR manager. That's not the case. Basically, what you'll need with the moment to hire an SDR manager is when you figured out how to scale pipeline. If you understand how to scale pipeline, then you can bring in an SDR manager, and they will be able to build out a machine around that, for example. Same thing, with head of sales or your first account executive. So you need to understand how to sell your product to which companies, how does the sales cycle look like? What are the pros and cons and the traps and the opportunities, etc. And after you understand that, then you can hire an AE to follow that process, basically. But when you look at hiring as just a force multiplier and a scaling mechanism, then you could also look at intelligence that way. And it's always about human and AI working together to scale processes that work, instead of trying to find answers with AI solutions that will solve all of our biggest challenges and would tell us how to run our businesses, or with hiring people who would tell us how to run our business. And I believe that the best founders, they don't need to hire people to tell them how to run their business. They understand how to run their business. Then they bring talented people to follow these processes, and then to take it from there to what they understand.
Amazing. Let's switch gears a bit. You have earlier mentioned that a lot of founders brag about, we booked so many demos, so many meetings booked, and you have always argued that volume is a trap. Why?
Yeah. So what we try to optimize for at Swan basically is the amount of touch points required to get an amount of ACV. Okay, so you take these two factors, the average contract value and the total touch points that are required to get that. And what you need to find is that sweet spot with the lowest touch points and the highest ACV you can generate. Okay. And when you look at that, it's not a question of how many accounts like that. Just a question of which accounts you should go after, basically. And when you focus more on the type of accounts that really fits into the lowest amount of touch points and highest ACV, then you can play more, lean into a precision game. And it depends on where you at. If you have a very low ACV, So you can have a transactional business. That's okay. Maybe 2 touch points and you closed it, and that's fine. And then so you're leaning more towards volume in some sense, but you know exactly which businesses these are. And so you're aiming for maybe a bigger volume of a specific type of businesses. And you're still trying to be accurate, but you have a bigger funnel because it's more of a transaction. If the ACV is higher, then it requires more touch points. And again, maybe the funnel is smaller, the volume is smaller, and you're still playing the precision game. So the thing is, you should always obsess about which accounts should I go after. If you have a huge TAM and you're serving 1,000 to 5,000 companies, employee companies in North America, that's it. And that's a huge red flag for an early stage startup. You should be obsessing about a very specific niche within that market, doubling down on them, because you know that for the time being, they are the ones that enable you to scale the fastest because it's the lowest touch points, the lowest amount of touch points with the highest ACV.
Makes sense. Is it safe to say you're referring to quantity of quality? Like you need a quality account, but at the same time, then you need to think about how would you increase the quantity?
Yes, definitely. You always, if my philosophy is, you always try to find the best version of something. You obsess about that, and then you try to scale it, right? So it's quality over quantity, because first you want to understand how does quality look like in the best way. And after that, you focus on scaling that and on quantity. And the go-to-market is always a zero-sum game, basically. You're fighting over the attention of the buyer and the budget of the buyer. It doesn't matter. It's not about competition. It's about attention and budget. These are the ones, the resources that you're really fighting for. And the competition is fierce. There's like so many people, so many companies who are fighting over the attention of the buyer and their budget, basically. And you should always think, how can you get an unfair advantage over all these competitors when trying to get attention and trying to get access to the budget? And with attention, if you just focus on quantity first before quality, then you're just going to lose the attention game, basically. And same thing goes with the budget afterwards. Because if you have an ICP that you have an amazing value proposition for, all your messaging is aligned for them, then you can have better access to their budget as well. So all your business aligns around that, and it's much easier to scale. And people think that having a bigger TAM enables them to scale faster. That's false. It's not the truth, actually. It's good to have a potential huge market to expand into eventually. If you're building a startup and you want to build a multi-billion-dollar company, then eventually you need to scale to a multi-billion market. But it doesn't mean that you need to serve that market at day one. It's actually the opposite. You should be focusing on a niche market that you could serve well in a repeatable manner, and that your messaging, value proposition, product, onboarding, sales materials, everything are aligned around this specific niche.
Got it. Since it looks like you're rewriting the whole GTM playbook, Amos, here. Tell me if some of the matrix which you believe has already died, but most people have not accepted it, or you think it should just die by now. For example, one of the things you mentioned is having a large TAM does not really help because of the obvious reasons you mentioned. What is one metric you feel like all founders should not even concentrate on?
Yeah, so activities, right? So a lot of people just try to focus on the amount of activities that they have in some way or another, like how many emails are we sending? How many times are we picking up the phone and calling people? How many leads we're engaging, etc. And even, how many meetings booked is not a metric to really obsess about. What we should strive for is, qualified pipeline, basically at the early stage. And if we're losing still in a world where we have a lot of qualified pipeline, it just means that we have a very weak business offering. Just we need to fix something very core of the business. If you're losing at qualified pipeline, it's not a go-to-market problem. Basically, it's a product, it's a business, it's a strategy, it's a very fundamental problem to your business if you're losing qualified pipeline, basically. And there's like other challenges that you need to focus on, not concerning go-to-market. But if you're obsessing about qualified pipeline and you find a way to scale that in a very efficient manner, then you won the go-to-market game. That's basically what you're trying to get to. And the biggest challenge that I see with growing startups is that there's a misalignment between all the functions within go-to-market around qualified pipeline. Because you have marketing, they're obsessing about MQLs, right? Marketing qualified leads. And you have SDRs who are obsessing about meetings booked. And AEs, they just care about closing, getting to the quota, basically hitting quota. And so where you have this fragmented attribution model and fragmented incentives model, then that's where a lot of problems get escalated. And so what you need to do as a founder or a go-to-market leader is try to align all of the functions around qualified pipeline and around initially around quality and understanding the best process that we can have with as much human in the loop as possible. And then after we nail that, try to scale it with AI enhancement and AI collaboration and automation, etc.
Wow, I think you've given me a lot of things to think about. I do have a follow-up question on this. Now, given that all the SDRs of Train and all the SDR leaders, we speak to, and they would predominantly be operating it the same way, like the way you mentioned, the way they should not, which is, hey, you know what, they have $1 million, let's say, quota of pipeline to be built, and that means they're going to do the whole math of, hey, these are the number of meetings we need, these are the number of conversation we need to have, the reply rate and whatnot. And I think you see the whole funnel, right? How would that look like in the new world?
Yeah, so part of the new world, which has been always a problem of go-to-market, is the sea of sameness. And because go-to-market is a zero-sum game, and the only way to rise above the noise is not really by being better, is by being different. And different is better than better, right? There's that saying. And I believe that the companies that would actually take the most advantage of this AI revolution are the ones that would not try to follow the playbook, but will try to listen to what they're good at, what the company is good at, what their DNA is good at, and try to double down on that with the technology. And so if you're a cold calling organization and someone is telling you that AI is really good at hyper personalizing emails at scale, you shouldn't care about that because you're a cold calling organization. So you should double down on an AI that could support that. And maybe you can use AI in that sense to run your email operations autonomously because you don't really care about that. That's not your edge. And so you say, yeah, that's okay. Maybe we'll use some basic email automation platform for that. But our cold calling is how we get advantage in the market. And so we need an amazing solution to amplify our team in that aspect. But if your game is on LinkedIn and there's a lot of social selling, your team's is good at writing posts and people react to that post. So you need to build a machine around generating content and turning that content into leads. So you need to understand your buyers, your value proposition, positioning, and your DNA. And from there, you need to figure out what's your strategy, what's your metrics, what's the playbook that you should build for yourself. And I feel like we're in this phase where everything is being rewritten right now. And AI is such a fundamental force that is changing our industry in every aspect. And that's actually an opportunity in go-to-market because the people that won't really follow the playbooks, but will try to generate their own, will be the ones that will take the most advantage over these next 5 years of mayhem that we're going to see.
You've called static sequences dead a lot of times. And I wanted to ask you, what does a dynamic AI-driven sequence will look like in practice?
Yeah, that's so sequences are basically a derivative of the activity-focused go-to-market point of view. And I really, as a buyer, I hate it, right? And no one likes to get 25-step sequence as a buyer where they're like 10 emails and then 10 LinkedIn messages and 5 calls over the course of like 2 months. And then, from the seller perspective, it's very stupid in the sense that you're just wasting so much resources on prospects that are not ready to buy, right? And there's this understanding in go-to-market today that at any given point of time, around 5% of the market is only really available to buy your solution. And the 95% are somewhere in the funnel. Maybe they are problem aware. Maybe they're not even problem aware. Maybe they're problem aware. Maybe they're solution aware. And maybe they're in consideration. And so what we should actually look at the market as, how can we figure out which account, where are they at the funnel, and try to move them one step below. Okay. And when we look from that perspective, basically, it won't help you to blast 30-step sequences at accounts that are not in market right now. They're not in consideration. Right? And what we encourage our customers is that if you have a strong signal that tells you that the account is in consideration, then you should have 4 or 5-step sequence to get the best personalized offering to the right people within the organization, right? And that's the hottest opportunity. But if you don't have a really good signal, then okay, this is in the nurturing realm still. You're not trying to get them to buy. You're trying to understand where they at the funnel. And so you need to engage with them in a way that will add value to them, in a way that will help them understand that there's a problem, there's a solution, etc. And when you try to look at sequences like that, you can use AI to really personalize every step and make every step accountable and in the context of that specific funnel, right? And then you can have just the 4 touch point sequence. If they're top of the funnel, that's okay. They didn't respond, totally fine, but you don't throw them away. Maybe there's a signal they are hiring a CTO, for example, right now. So maybe they're a problem aware right now. So let's reach out again. And reached out again, and there wasn't any response right now. Okay, cool. But then there was, few weeks later, there was another signal. Maybe they visited our website. Wow, that's a big sign. So now they're maybe, even ready to buy. So let's re-engage, et cetera, et cetera. So instead of trying to blast people, multi-touch sequence, and then throw them away, you should look at it as trying to get them in the funnel as lowest as possible, all the time, listening to the market, listening to the signals, and engaging with them appropriately.
Amazing. I do have a follow-up question on this, which is the cost of inaction. I'm sure a lot of founders are going to listen to it and say, no, and it feels like too much effort, right? What you're telling me. And while this is, of course, the direction, we all need to go into as we dive into the future, what is the cost of inaction? What if companies don't change and keep running these 30-day or 25-day sequence?
Yeah, so I think that they're already seeing the cost of inaction. It's in their pipeline is drying up, and they're seeing other companies in their market exploding and scaling super fast, and they are still behind. And the cost of inaction here is death. Basically, is losing your company, because we are such a transformative phase of business that the companies that will emerge on the other side of this technological revolution will not only be the strongest, but they will be the only ones, because the previous generation will be evaporated, basically.
Wow, that's some harsh truth for people to hear. You talked about the Swan Metric mindset. That's something which I've been waiting for the last 40 minutes. You introduced the Swan Metric, $1 million ARR per employee, or did you say 10 million? I could be wrong. Please correct me. As a new benchmark, why does it matter so much?
Yeah. So at Swan, we're building the first autonomous business. And what we're trying to do basically is to figure out the architecture of a business that is designed to scale with intelligence, not headcount, through human AI collaboration. And what we're trying to discover in this journey is how can we apply this new technology to find the 100x version of each employee within the company, of each founder in our case. And when you focus your mission on amplification of your talent, then the metric that you should focus on is ARR per employee, basically revenue per employee. And what we believe is the companies that will have the highest revenue per employee metrics in the future are the companies that figure out the human AI collaboration, the AI amplification model in the best way possible. And so at Swan, our North Star is actually getting to $10 million ARR per employee. We believe that the best companies, what we use before we said $1 billion valuation would be an amazing accomplishment. But today it doesn't mean anything. We have $1 billion companies that are closing, that are not able to raise additional rounds, and that are being acquired for pennies, etc. It doesn't mean anything if you get to a high valuation. But if you get to $10 million ARR per employee, that means that you've built a business that is resilient for the future that we're going to see, where AI takes more and more responsibilities in the job market, and a business that could scale with hyper profitability and efficiency.
Wow. I have like a 3-part question now. How would you change this mindset for founders who have been operating in a totally different way, and founders who are just starting? And what does this mean for salespeople? Because would that mean that there would be less and less opportunities for them? Or would that mean, I don't know, maybe more and more upskilling and more, changing the mindset?
To your first question, becoming an autonomous business and becoming an AI native company, as you mentioned earlier, Rahul, hasn't any connection to AI, basically. Okay. You don't need to know large language modeling and prompt engineering, etc., to really understand how to become an autonomous business. It's really about developing what I call the AI muscle. And the AI muscle is a combination of two things. One, figuring out for yourself your challenges and bottlenecks that you have within your business, and then interacting with these no-code, low-code automation tools to solve these challenges within the business. And what happened here is that these no-code tools has been existing for years, basically. It's like a 15 years old industry. And they just incorporated AI within their solutions in a very simple way. And so if you want to turn your operations to being much more AI native, it's not really about learning all these agentic stuff. It's really about figuring out where you can move the needle, where you have a challenge or a bottleneck, and then trying to use external tooling to solve it, basically. And nothing has changed fundamentally in that sense, only the potential. That's it. Just the potential has changed to make an impact on your business, because today, with these no-code automation tools that use AI within them, you can just solve so many bottlenecks that you couldn't solve before. But it's not really about, looking for solutions that could change your business. It's actually looking for the challenges and bottlenecks that if you would solve them, that would change the business. Once you have that, you couple that with the right solution, and that's it. You have an AI native company. That's all basically that you need. And when we started Swan, we didn't know a lot about agents. We weren't like these AI engineers. We just started learning it by doing. And that's the best way to do it. And the cool thing is that the worst scenario is that you failed with implementing this AI solution, but you learned so much through that implementation. And so it's not really about building stuff. It's about learning stuff and positioning you to a future where AI is super dominant. And if you built your entire talent stack so that they're not afraid of it and they know how to use it and they know what works and what doesn't, then you're future-proofing your business.
Wow. I think you said something so profound. I just went into like an epiphany. When I was creating a lot of stuff, a lot of design stuff using Lovable for our business, I realized that, I learned so much about design. I learned so much about how to prompt properly. I learned so much about everything, like how everything will sit together. And you're absolutely right. And I think the amount of learning I had when I was learning anything, not just this, is insane. And when I think about this, if I have to go back to job, I will be indispensable because I will be doing things which people are not even doing at the moment. So yeah, I think that's profound. Yeah, let's go back to the salespeople. Now, I'm pretty sure they're somehow scared, not so much, but we recently heard CRO Salesloft talking about how the SDR function is dead. And you're talking about that, hey, you know what, the old age predictable revenue model is dead. So where do we land? What does it mean for salespeople in the future?
Yeah. So I strongly believe, and I said before, that the future is about being different. Okay, it's not being predictable and better. Is about being different. And the roles of humans in sales and the marketing will prevail. They will be super important. I believe in human creativity. Just because go-to-market is a zero-sum game and you're always fighting against other people. It's not like R&D in the sense that you just try to generate as much as quality code as you can. In go-to-market, it's really about just rising above the noise. The noise is other people. So if everyone is using AI, and let's say the AI is AGI already, okay? But everyone is using AGI, and everyone is calling OpenAI APIs to just send, personalized emails. Everyone is sending the same emails, right? And you still need human creativity to rise above the noise. And so human creativity is required at every step of the funnel to make a difference. It requires at top of the funnel, and it requires at bottom of the funnel and sales meetings, etc. And it's just a matter of question of how. And so I have no doubt that AI will play a huge role there. But sellers, in that sense, will be the main drivers behind the wheel. And sellers who think that AI will be behind the wheel and they will be sitting up by the side just trying to get commands and perform, they are the ones that might be replaced. But if you understand that this is a tool that you can master and you can take to your own advantage, then you are future-proofing yourself, basically. And it's all about learning this new technology. And the best thing about it is that since the invention of the fire, this is the most simple technology ever invented, in the sense that it's so easy to understand and work with, because it talks like a human, speaks like a human, writes like a human, you interact with it like a human. And so you don't need to be a mechanical engineer just to learn this new technology. So for sellers to future-proof yourself, all you need to do is start working with this technology day and night. And that's it. If you do that, then you're future-proofing yourself, because the sellers that will know how to use AI in the context of what makes them rise above the noise will be the best sellers in the world.
Wow. I have one final bonus question. What is one thing which we have not covered where you feel founders are getting wrong about building the AI native companies?
Yeah, so the biggest mistake with, it's called even bigger, like AI implementations by large, is that people are optimizing for perfection, not adaptation. And what does it mean is that we don't really know what is that perfect state that we're aiming for when we're trying to implement AI. We think it's X, but we don't really know if that's really is the case. And 99% of the time is not the case. And what happens is that we invest all that time and effort and energy to get to that state that we thought that would be the perfect state, but then maybe the AI is not good enough. Maybe the people are not really getting how to use it. Maybe the buyers don't really like it, et cetera. There are so many factors there. And we say, it's not working. We lost. The project is, doomed to fail. But if we optimize for adaptation, it's not really about that end state that we're trying to get to. It's optimizing for a process, for an iterative process, for feedback loops, basically. And you're optimizing for a mechanism that could change and adapt to the conclusions that you arrive to. And when you build out these AI implementations with that in mind, you're reducing your probability of losing to almost zero, because it's not really about getting to an end state or another. It's about perfecting that process of improving this AI implementation. And at Swan, we have the same approach with our products. What we realize is, instead of building an AI agent to solve a specific problem, what we did at Swan is build a platform for people to actually build out the agents that they think could solve their own challenges and go to market, and make it extremely simple for them to iterate on these AI agents and provide them with feedback loops. So you build something, you see where it works, where it doesn't, and then to iterate on it and improve it takes you seconds. And I think that mentality is something that founders should adopt all across the board in becoming an AI native company and having AI implementations within their company. And if they're building an AI solution, then embed that philosophy in their product design.
This has been incredible, Amos. I'll tell you that. We started with the idea that founders do not need more bodies, they need better design. And I think you broke it down beautifully. We dug into why sequences relevance beat volume, why the ops wizard is the hidden key hire, and why static sequences are like the relics of the past. I think the takeaways for me and for anyone listening is, do not hire your way out of the problems. Keep humans in the loop while agents learn, and anchor every decision around ARR per employee. And I think that's a playbook you said you're living every day at Swan. So thank you so much for sharing those frameworks and controversial takes with us. For anyone listening who want to go deeper in this, what's the best way to find you online?
Yeah, so I write a lot on LinkedIn. So follow me on LinkedIn, and I share a lot of our learnings, etc. I also have a newsletter, so where I document kind of like the behind the scenes of building an autonomous business, the wins and losses. So we would share the links for the episode, I'm sure, but it's called The Big Shift for Swan AI. And then I have also a digital clone that you can talk to and ask questions about the autonomous business and everything around it. It's called Autonomous, and it's available in the GPT store.
Wow. Okay. Wow. I created a clone myself. It's on one of the other websites of the business I run. It's from Delphi. So I know it's so fun to talk to it. Have you been able to get it sound like you?
Yeah, I did actually. With Delphi, I couldn't. So I felt like it was pretty limited in that sense. But with the GPT infrastructure that OpenAI provides, I built something pretty cool. Sounds like me and has real access to all of the playbooks that we wrote and how we're building our autonomous business and the lessons learned, etc. So it really is a valuable source of information.
I'm going to steal that link and steal all your playbooks.
Let's go. Let's do it.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, Amos, once again.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, Rahul.
Take care.